Good afternoon or good evening, wherever you are in Australia. We're going to be looking at social proof, what it is and how you can use it to generate more customers for your small business. My name is Dante St James. I'm going to share my screen and get us underway. All the channels are open. If you're live on Zoom right now, you can chat with me through the chat window, through the Q&A. If there's some questions that get asked along the way, please don't be shy. Ask those questions. I'll be more than happy to answer some of those questions along the way with you. We're going to be looking at a lot of different stuff that's coming through the pipe as great ideas for generating social proof. And I'll give you some examples along the way of how social proof has helped to grow a bunch of other businesses and examples as well. So what is social proof before we get underway with anything? Social proof is a term that was coined back in 1984. And it's all about Robert Cialdini and his book Influence. And it was the idea that people copy the actions of others in an attempt to emulate behavior in certain situations. So let's look at an example would be, for instance, you walk into a room full of people, you don't know these people, you don't know how you're supposed to act or what you're meant to do. So you tend to watch for the social cues. You watch how people are interacting with each other so you can know how you are meant to act in that particular circumstance as well. That doesn't sound a lot like social proof online, though. Social proof online goes a bit of a step further. It goes into the idea that it generally means we look for reassurance when we're buying something. If we see that others are buying it or recommending it, then we get this feeling inside us that it actually must be good. It must be good for us, and it's probably a good idea to follow the crowd and do that thing as well. Look at that into a little bit more depth coming on soon, and especially on how you may be able to use that too. What we're going to cover today is how social proof works, some rather hilarious but also really scary examples of how social proof used to work before the age of social media. I'm going to go back to the 1950s and look at a few examples there. We're going to look at the 6 different types of social proof and look at some examples of how they've been creatively used in a number of circumstances. And then I think we'll look at how you can use social proof if you'd like to participate live and get some feedback on how your particular business could benefit from the different types of social proof as well. So I'm looking for you to participate. If you don't want to participate, you don't have to, but if you'd like to work directly with me to look at how you can use social proof to better draw new customers to you or to even get customers to come back to you, it'd be really fun to have a play with that. This is brought to you by Business Station and the Australian Small Business Advisory Services Digital Solutions Program from the Australian Government in conjunction with Regional Development Australia, Brisbane in Queensland, Business Station themselves in WA, and Treaty Business Consulting in the Northern Territory. You can watch this again later through the Business Station channel on YouTube or through my channel on YouTube. So you can just jot down either my name and you can see all my stuff that I've done, nearly 100, I think it's over 100 now videos that I've loaded up there, and Business Station, which is probably close to about 300 now, considering they've got so many different advisors like myself now participating in their channel as well. So have a look at that and you can find some great content in there for free. A little bit about me. I have my own business, Clickstarter. I have a few different businesses, actually. I've got a couple of drop shipping businesses. I've got something which actually collects coffee grounds from cafes in a city that I'm not allowed to tell you which one it is, and actually turns that into cleaning products and into beauty products as well. I mentor new businesses in the Northern Territory, in Alice Springs and in Darwin on the NICE program, which is helping businesses, I guess, all around Australia to get started in the best possible way. Work with Google's Digital Springboard project, bringing digital literacy to a lot of remote locations around Australia. In Treaty Business Consulting in the Northern Territory, I act as a digital advisor for a lot of their clients. I work with Facebook through their Boost with Facebook program. In fact, in a couple of weeks, I'm heading down to New South Wales to do a series of talks with Facebook and Canva starting in the Central Coast. I'm hoping some of those come to Queensland, Northern Territory, and Western Australia this year as well. And my own training business, which is just my name, DanteStJames.com. You can visit those and check me out if you'd like to see some of my own social proof. So we kind of got an idea of what social proof may be. How does it really work? How does it really pan out in the real world? So it pans out with crazy statistics like this. Random House Publishers said that 62% more books are sold when they're on the Oprah Book Club. That's a form of social proof that says that if it's on Oprah's book club and lots of other people are buying it, then it's obviously a good thing, and I probably should buy it as well. That's kind of like that cross between celebrity endorsement and social proof. The celebrity endorsement comes up first, but then if you see something on a book club like the Oprah book club, where it's very, very popular and lots of people are buying stuff from there, it's not just because it's Oprah. Oprah kind of gives it the first push, which says, okay, I should buy it because Oprah says so. But then you start to see your friends and the people who you know and lots of other people buying stuff from the Oprah book club. And you think, well, it must be a good book. Look at all those people who are buying it. The social proof on there will come in when you start to see on the website for Oprah's book club, you'd actually see the numbers of people who bought that. It's like the bestseller list. If you look at the bestseller list of books, that is a form of social proof as well, because it's showing you that 230,000 copies of this book are being sold. It must be good. If I haven't heard about it, that's because I must be out of touch. So I've got to go and get this book because everyone seems to be all over it. Social proof is a little bit like Game of Thrones too. You remember when everyone was talking about Game of Thrones and you kind of got to feel dumb because you didn't watch it, and everyone's going, oh, you've got to watch this show. You've got to watch this show. It's an amazing show. Everyone's watching it. It does seem like a lot of people were watching this show. It was actually the most watched show, not only in Australia, but the world during its viewing. It was crazy how many people are watching it. So much of that didn't happen at the beginning, though. It's not like all those people started at the beginning. Those figures got bigger and bigger as the seasons went on, because so much talk was happening on social media that people would come onto the show late and get started on watching it. Some other examples of that, for instance, would be things like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or the Marvel movies that are going on. Star Wars is another one. How many of us started watching Star Wars because we heard the friends of ours talking about and carrying on about it, so we went and started watching Star Wars? Or is there a particular cafe that's in town that you go to, that everyone goes to because it's the hot new place to go because they have these crazy donuts, or they do cronuts, or they do bruffins, or they do some sort of different thing that everybody's reviewing them about, and you can't help but have to go there because you're so curious, because all these people, they can't be wrong. In my town in Darwin, we have a place called John John's Gelato. Now, I've tried John John's. I've tried all the gelato places in town because I do like ice cream. I cannot say that gelato to me is any different to the other guys. In fact, my favorite one's from another place, not from that place. But the social proof for John John's is so strong that seeing a lineup outside there would make someone not go to the one that doesn't have a lineup. They'll go, oh, I'll go to the one with the lineup because that's the one that everyone seems to be going to. So social proof sometimes is a real world thing where you can just literally see a lineup. How many people back in the 90s, I guess, when Sizzler was around, thought that Sizzler must be this thing that everyone should go to because he used to have these big lineups outside of it. Kind of crazy, isn't it, when you think about it? Who decided that it was such a great thing to do? Who decided that it was the hot place to go? Some friends of mine who actually run a couple of villas in Nusa Dua in Bali say they had 6 times more bookings when their reviews hit over 200 guests on TripAdvisor. When they hit that threshold, the bookings went through the roof. And we find this in a lot of tourism businesses as well, is when they hit a certain threshold of lots of people. Now, even if there's a business that has 35 reviews that are 5-star, but the next business has 250 reviews that are averaging about 4.2 stars. Now, the natural thing for us to think to go to would be the 5-star, but if there's only 32, that's 5-star. And then you look at this other one's got over 250 and it's got 4.2. Well, then you think, well, actually, I'm going to go for the 4.2 because more people seem to be giving some good news about this, where this one over here only has 35 reviews. It doesn't seem that popular, even though it's got a higher rating. And that's a little bit of a funny thing that happens when it comes to a lot of businesses, that the trust isn't in the actual number that's showing, the 5 stars, for instance. The trust is in the amount of people who have been doing the reviews. So what you want to try and get is lots of reviews rather than everyone being 5-star. There's actually a natural distrust when it comes to 6 or 7 reviews at 5 stars. I'll tell you what, I could probably rustle up 6 or 7 friends to write 6 or 7 5-star reviews for me on Google if I really, really wanted to. It's all about getting more of them. Another example would be a Jumping Crocs cruise that's here in the Northern Territory. So sorry to use Northern Territory examples. It's where I live, so it's very easy to give those examples. In this particular case, a client who I've been working with over the last year, their sales increased by, get this, 230% when they had more than 100 more. They had 100 more reviews than their biggest competitor. They used to be 100 reviews less than their competitor. They went out of their way in this past 12 months to build their review base, to build their base of more people saying stuff about them. And so what the result was that not only now have their sales gone up, not only have they got this momentum where every day I'm seeing, like, they have 4 tours a day, they're getting 10 to 15 reviews per day. I see it because it pops up on my phone all the time. Like, they got another one and another one and another one. They're getting so many reviews that it's actually there. I think the last time I looked at it was about 100 more reviews. I think they've actually got nearly 150 more reviews than their competitors now, which is showing not only in the fact that they're getting those good reviews, but it's actually helped them to go from number 3 out of their competitors in the rankings on Google. They're now a clear number 1 on all metrics. No matter who searches, they come up as number 1. Not just because of that, they've done a lot of work in other areas to get a lot of backlinks. They've done a lot of work to get a lot of great feedback, a lot of social media they've been doing. They've clearly done an effort, and then they're the number 1, and their sales are up 230%. And this is without any international travelers. This is just with domestic travelers in this last 12 months. That's a pretty big effort. So why in the hell does social proof actually work? It doesn't seem to be very logical. It really doesn't seem to be something which you can say, these people worked hard, these people worked hard, but person A has had no result, but person B has had a result. Sometimes working hard, doing the right things isn't what is going to get you across the line in the end. Sometimes it's actually knowing that people out there can see the hard work you're doing. Sometimes doing a great job isn't going to help anything unless other people are willing to show that you did a great job. So you could be a wedding organizer, someone who plans weddings. No one will know that you're a good wedding organizer until somebody tells the world that you are. So social proof can be something as simple as word of mouth. It could be that there is some validation of what you do from other people. Now, I know the new age world will tend to tell us, oh, no, you don't need to be validated by anyone else by yourself. You need to feel good inside yourself. I can guarantee you those people still feel great when someone gives them a bit of applause. When we do hard work, and when you're a business owner, there's a certain amount of ego that's required in that. It's not a bad thing. It doesn't make you a crim to make you feel, for you to feel good about your work, especially when someone else notices it. When someone else notices it, that validation helps us to know we're on the right track. It also helps us in that whole social proof thing. So why does it work? It simply works because we buy products that make us feel something. That's often feeling better about ourselves in the case of things like cosmetics, beauty products, any sort of lifestyle products. We feel better about the changes we want to go through. If we need to make ourselves look thinner, fatter, bigger, smaller, more trendy, more grungy, if those are the things you want to do, then social proof helps us feel better about that change we're going through. There's a shop and there's an online store for every single taste in the world. It also makes us feel more confident about the decision we're about to make, especially if that decision is to buy something that's quite expensive. We do hit a threshold, and it's a very natural threshold that we hit at about that $100 mark. Under $100, we don't obsess about what we're spending about quite so much. But as soon as we hit that $100 mark, whether it's an airfare, a hotel, there's some things that sort of make us go, ooh, I just need to take a bit of a break here. And quite often when you do that, that's when you'll start to notice that this person from Warrandyte in Victoria just bought this product, this person from, and you'll see these little things popping up on not social media, but on e-commerce websites, creating social proof that other people are buying these things. Now, the reality is other people might have bought that thing 3 weeks ago, and it's just recycling these same people over and over again. But it does a little magic thing. It lets us know that, well, if other people are buying it, it can't be that bad. And a lot of those software sites that are trying to sell you, Infusionsoft or customer relationship management systems or new video systems or something that's going to grow your business, those kind of systems, you'll see a lot of this social proof. You'll start to see that there's, so-and-so from Uzbekistan just bought this, so-and-so from the United Kingdom bought this, someone from New Zealand just bought this. And when you start to see something come up from your country or your city or your locality that's bought something, it does a very interesting thing inside your head. It gives you a little shot of dopamine, and dopamine is that that reward hormone, reward peptide or hormone that lets your brain feel good about something. So it could be that every time we get a notification on a phone, that gives us a little dopamine hit, and it's quite addictive when we get it. So a lot of these websites are using social proof in that way to give you enough little dopamine hits to know that, oh, there's enough people in my country, my city, my locality that are buying this. Then I can feel pretty confident and decisive about that. And that's what we also like to feel when we're buying something, that we're in control, that we've made a good decision, and we're really decisive about it. We don't like buyer's remorse. Buyer's remorse is what puts 80% of items in carts to never, ever go through to actually making the purchase. Cart abandonment is rife when it comes to e-commerce or any sort of online booking, or people even booking your services if you have a service. It's one of those things that we like to feel decisive, but that whole thing comes back to haunt us where we go, oh, I don't know whether I should spend that $300 on that course because there's so many other things I could spend it on. And how do I know that this one's the good one that I should be going for? And then at that point of indecision, if a bit of social proof pops up and it says, hey, if you've got some more questions about this, we'd like to tell you how XYZ business made an extra 30% in their sales in just 30 days. And you'll start to see these little things pop up. They're not just necessarily this person in your suburb bought this thing. It could be simply that here is some further proof we've got, and I'll show you soon these 6 individual types of social proof that start to pop up, and you'll recognize so many of these. But another thing that social proof helps us to do is to feel part of something bigger. Quite often when we're buying something like a course, or we're buying something like entry to some sort of group coaching, or whether it could be just simply something that's fashion, we like to be able to know that other people like it and wear it, and we're not going to feel silly. And it makes us feel like we're part of, I guess, a tribe, especially if you're joining a lot of, those Facebook groups, a lot of Facebook, ads gurus and Facebook and social media gurus and business coaches and all that sort of thing. They like to draw you into, join a group of girls just like you. We're all boss babes just like you. We're all small business owners just like you. So there's a place here for you to belong. That's a form of social proof, because it's saying, oh, actually, there's other people just like me. It feels kind of good that I'd go in and be part of that. It seems to kind of make sense that I'd want to be part of that. Then social proof also feels like it gives us permission to do something. And quite often when it's it doesn't have to be, manipulative copy that's written on the website to get you across the line, but knowing that other people just like me are doing something makes me not feel quite as alone. And that's one of the big problems we have with shopping online, or with trying to do our services businesses online, is that feeling that, I don't really know if I can do this because I feel a little bit on my own about this. Who do I go to? But if we see that others are doing it, and we know that others are doing it, it's just like going to a new shop, going to a new cafe, going to a new church. You're much more likely to do these things if you're going with someone you know, or if someone you know has gone there, then it feels like it's just a lot more realistic for you. It's going to be something which is going to feel a lot more like you're going to walk in there and not be on your own. You're not going to go in there and be a fool. You're not going to waste your money. You're not going to waste your time. You're actually sewing into something that has some value. Social proof also connects us, and it's a really weird thing to say, and particularly in like a lot of social media coach groups, a lot of business groups, a lot of marketing coach groups, is that the whole point of it, and comes from someone who I really actually quite admire. Her name's Shailene Johnson, and she's a coach over in America and does a lot of very large group coaching and workshops. And she, that typical Southern Texan, loudmouth, big hair, big teeth kind of presenter. She's a lot of fun. She has, the perfect son who works with her, who is also a football player. So, they're a beautiful family with everything going right for them. They're great people. And there's this thing that she drags people in because they want to be just like Shailene, or the guys just want to be just like Brock, who's her son. There's something that makes us feel like we're connected when we see something that feels like it's got some validation from it. So if we see people who are just like us, like you go to any conference, you go to a trade show, you go to even a concert, if you see more people there like you don't feel quite so stupid. If you're a 48-year-old going to let's just say a BTS concert. And if you know who they are, they're a Korean boy band. I've got friends who are obsessed with them. And I'm like, dude, you're 45. You should not be obsessed with a Korean boy band. But they are. And so I look at it and go, well, I don't feel great about the fact that they are into that. But if I decided that I really was into their music, I wouldn't feel quite so bad about it if I had someone to talk to. For my case, it could be something like Star Trek or Star Wars. My Star Trek stuff connects me with other Star Trek people who are equally as obsessed with that franchise of entertainment as what I am. So that when I see something come up that's like this little model or this particular blueprint poster that I can get for my wall, if I'm seeing that other people just like me are buying it, that other people just like me are discussing it, other people like me are actually watching that new show or that new movie, then I feel a little bit better about going and doing it myself because I've got that proof that it's okay from a bunch of my social circle or even my extended social circle online. Social proof helps us decide. It helps us to make that decision to step over the line and go, yes, I'm going to do this thing. Even though I felt a little bit unsafe before, I now feel safe. Others are doing it, therefore I can do it. Which brings us, I guess, to what those different kinds of social proof are. But before we do that, I'm going to take you through a frightening walk down memory lane of how social proof used to look in the 1950s. It used to look a bit like this, as where you would see some sort of proof in that it's okay to smoke Viceroys because your dentist would recommend Viceroys. Now, it's not a photo of a dentist. It's a complete fabrication of a fake dentist. And of course, any dentist these days will tell you that smoking is actually highly destructive to anything in your mouth or anywhere in your body. So it's not one of those things where any sort of doctor or dentist would ever recommend it. But that dentist is kind of generic enough like that he looks like any dentist anywhere in America in the 1950s. He's got the wavy haircut, he's got the white skin, he's got the rosy cheeks. He looks like someone you can trust, because who would not trust a rosy-cheeked man who's a dentist back in the 1950s? That's a form of social proof that was used back then. They used a lot of doctors and dentists and a lot of movie stars and TV stars to provide that social proof. So if I want to be just like Lucille Ball, I would take a look at all those things that Lucille Ball used to front for, and I'd go, yes, they're good for me. If they're good for Lucy, they're good for me. The same with this kind of thing, where it's showing some social proof that if you have runs in your stockings, then your husband's going to look at your stockings and think that you're terrible. And because husbands admire wives who keep their stockings perfect. Honestly, I don't know whether this is true back in the 1950s. This sort of stuff was just ridiculous. And the whole idea is that we would use Lux soap on your stockings to help them have a coating that would help them not run or get those ladders in those stockings. I remember back in the it have to be like the 80s when my mother used to wear stockings. That was a thing that used to do. I don't think she's worn stockings in 30 years, to be honest. But back in this time, especially back in the 1950s, you'd have these cases where you would play on the idea of social proof by saying your husband is going to think poorly of you if you don't do this. Your neighbors will feel poorly about you if you don't do this. So it's that manipulation of going straight out there that your friends are not going to like you if you do this thing. In this case, it's saying your children aren't going to like you if you have what is called halitosis. Now, halitosis is a made-up condition. If you ever hear it said these days, it's actually completely invented by the Listerine company. The Listerine company, as you know, the gargle, the mouthwash people, they completely invented the term halitosis. It is not a medical term. It is not anything that dentists or doctors would call it. It's a made-up term, and it's described bad breath. That's saying that, since halitosis never announces itself to the victim, you simply cannot know when you have it. So the idea is this poor woman, she's being rejected by her own child because she's got bad breath. This is awful stuff. And this is the way it used to be used. Right up to the 1980s and 90s, a lot of this was used to say, if you want to be like your friends, if you want to keep up with the crowd, if you want to keep up with the Joneses, you'll do this thing. You'll paint your garage door. You'll use this particular lawn food for your lawn, or you'll get your roof done by these people because, you want to look good in front of your neighbors. That kind of stuff is very, very common in right up to the 1990s until we started to go more towards things that were targeted towards individual people rather than working on this whole social proof thing by shaming people into doing something or buying something. Social proof is used in terms such as 9 out of 10 women recommend that you buy this particular brand of coffee. The Pepsi challenge was a great big social proof thing. It actually had people who looked like just like you and me at a shopping center, a beach, in the street, testing out to see which cola they liked the best, if it was Pepsi or Coke. And of course, they'd always show you that more people, up to, I think it was like 8 out of 10 people, preferred Pepsi over Coke. That was designed not to say that Pepsi tastes better. What it was designed to is that if 8 out of 10 people prefer Pepsi over Coke, I should probably drink Pepsi because I'll just be this fool who's going around drinking Coke because that's what everyone does. So you thought you were making a very socially acceptable choice to jump over to Pepsi, when the reality was that we don't know. That was not a scientific study that people preferred Pepsi over Coke. And I guess by the sales of Coke and Pepsi even today, we know that was probably just a lie. Although I must admit, I am a Pepsi drinker. Pepsi Max is my poison of choice. Probably shouldn't be drinking any of these things, should we? Things like men prefer this, or women prefer that, or kids prefer this. They're all very social proof based. Things like more Australians trust in IAG insurance, or more Australians trust in Colgate toothpaste, is saying that, well, if more Australians trust in that, then I probably should trust in that, and I should probably go and get that too. That's another form of social proof that's used in more traditional mediums. So let's take a look now at the different types of social proof that are out there. And this will give you some great ideas of what you can then apply to your particular business and to your websites and your social media as well. The first one is case studies. Now, I'm a big fan of case studies. I think that if you're selling to businesses and not selling to individual consumers, a case study is a fantastic way to reach people, because these days businesses don't believe testimonials, because testimonials tend to be very, very misleading, and they tend to be very much, my friends did this testimonial for me, my friends did this review for me. But a case study is a bit like a story. It's driven around a result. So this particular company came to us and they wanted to achieve 1, 2, and 3. We sold this, this, and this to them, and now they've achieved this, this, and this. It's a very specific to an industry, very, very specific to an outcome that your particular customers or your particular clients may want to achieve. It's, I guess, an anonymous variation of a testimonial. So it can be a real case study. I use case studies all the time, saying I worked with this particular tour operator in Catherine in the Northern Territory. I worked with this provider of remote engineering services. It's not saying who that person is, so you're not necessarily blowing the lid on the fact that this particular company used you and not someone else. You're just playing with the idea that, okay, well, we're just going to put it here that now that we've got certain people who are doing a certain thing, they bought a product, they signed up for a service, but we're not going to identify them by name. We're just going to say they're in this industry, this kind of business, and this is what they went in with, and this is what they got out of it. So a case study is, like I said, really, really good for business to business sales. It's where someone's looking for a bit of an outcome. So I often say very, very clearly that I helped a bore drilling company who drills for artesian bores to get ground bore water out in the rural area. Then I would say, okay, I'm not mentioning that they are this particular bore company. I'm not going to mention that they are this particular person who gave a review. What I'm going to say is that this is what we're able to do. This person came, they had no presence on Google, they had no presence on Facebook, and we helped them through the process of search engine optimization to become the number 1 or 2, depending on what day it is, person in that area for that particular kind of business. So that's the kind of thing which is a case study. It's not saying that Jim from Jim's Bakery said that we were awesome and we helped him to sell 37% more cream buns. We're saying that a bakery business in a bakery retail business in the, let's just say, in the southeast of Queensland came to us wanting to be able to sell more individual units of their fresh bread products because they were finding they were having too many things left over at the end of the day. We worked with them to create a new social media presence, which then advertised daily specials and gave urgency to buy things towards the end of the day when people were bargain shopping. So that way they get at least some money back on the investment they made by making too many cream buns in the morning. We're not mentioning which bakery it is. We're not saying where the bakery is, apart from saying it's in Southeast Queensland. We're just saying we're able to help them out. And this is the process we went through helping them out with. It's not giving away your trade secrets. It's just simply saying that they came with this problem. You did this, this, and this in very generic terms, and they got the result of X. So it's a way of, I guess, doing a bit of a testimonial without having to go and get the testimonial because you're not actually using the person or their name. Which then brings us to testimonials naturally. Testimonials should be simple and short. Long essays are not a testimonial. They're just someone trying to look good. So when people write long, meandering TripAdvisor reviews and long, meandering Google reviews, they're really just trying to draw attention to themselves, not to your business. But testimonials can be useful for any kind of business in any kind of industry at all. They can be in the form of Google reviews. They can be in the form of TripAdvisor. They can be in the form of Facebook recommendations. They can be Yelp. If there's any sort of those hotel booking sites, they have a variation of testimonials as well. And they're very good for showing on anywhere where you're going to have something for sale. Now, the social proof of a testimonial is if someone can talk about their experience, and it's a good experience that they had with that particular business, that particular consultant, that particular person, the program, then it lets someone know who's reading that for the first time that here's some real people and here's the specific things that they went through that made them feel great about the fact they did that purchase or booked that service. Now, testimonials are, if you've ever tried to get them, incredibly hard to get. You can have 100 customers and only have 3 or 4 of that 100 actually give you a testimonial. But one thing I can guarantee you is you will not get a review or a testimonial if you don't ask for it. You'll miss out on 100% of the ones that you don't ask for. People left to their natural devices will tend to give a poor recommendation or a poor testimonial. They want to have a whinge about something when something's gone wrong. I caught a flight earlier today. In fact, it was only about an hour and a half before this particular webinar that I rocked up on Air North. Now, Air North is they're renowned in the northern part of Australia for always running late. They're not the most comfortable planes to be on. The air conditioning breaks down a lot. The food's terrible. The waiting time, the cancellations, the delays, they're pretty bad. But I had a pretty good run with Air North today. They didn't do too bad. So what would normally happen is that you get a situation where people who have never caught them before and know what they're like would say, oh, they're terrible. It's terrible. They ran 2 hours late. There was all these problems. And then we had to wait at the airport for 15 minutes standing in the heat, ready to go through the COVID checkpoint and all that. And it was absolutely awful. I totally wouldn't recommend. The reality is, though, that I have had probably out of the 20 flights I've done with Air North, 19 of those flights have been lovely. They've been incident-free, completely fine. But then I've got one that's coming up, not tomorrow, but on Sunday, coming back from Broome. I'm going to come back from Broome to Darwin on Sunday this weekend. And that flight was originally booked for Saturday. So you can imagine how I feel about that Sunday flight. So it's very tempting for me to go, okay, I had a bad experience. This has been delayed by a whole day. That's unacceptable. It's terrible. You can't trust them. Reality is I don't have much of a choice unless I want to fly from Darwin to Perth to Broome. I'm going to have to fly with these guys. So I have to put up with some of the lateness of all that. The point is that people are much more willing to leave a bad review than a good one, unless you ask them. If someone's had a great experience with your business, asking them for a review at the point that they had that good experience is much greater chance of you to pick up a testimonial than just leaving it and just leaving them to their own devices. We don't tend to leave reviews or testimonials unless we're asked. So ask for testimonials, reach out for them after sales service is reaching out and say, hey, I hope you're going well and you really enjoyed that particular session we did. I'd love to be able to get some feedback on how you went. And if possible, use that as a testimonial with your permission. Do you mind writing a few words about your experience? That will either tell them to say, well, no, I don't want to do that because I think I had a terrible experience. It's like, well, that's a learning thing for you. You can learn that someone had that bad experience so you don't repeat it again. Or if you get a good piece of feedback and the permission to use it, there is your testimonial. You can systemize this kind of stuff with all sorts of plugins and different systems that allow you to get some feedback from your customers, whether that's leaving a testimonial and a review on Google or a recommendation on Facebook or a piece of testimonial coming back to your email inbox that you can then copy and paste and put pretty much anywhere. Testimonials are great. Just make sure you've got a good collection of them. And it's nice to get a bit of variation in there. You don't want ones that are saying bad stuff about you to put on your website. You want all sorts of good stuff, but you want to have some variations. Things that are saying, oh my gosh, she's the best, she's amazing, she's so cool. All that sort of stuff which doesn't actually look at specific things. That's the sort of stuff you want to avoid. It'll say, oh my God, Jenny is the best in the business. She is so good. Best I've ever tried. Those kind of things just sound like a friend or even the person themselves reviewing themselves and giving themselves a testimonial. So try to be real about it. If someone says, look, I was really worried about it. And when I walked in, it's a really small business. I thought, oh, this is probably not going to be good for me. But then when I sat down, we had the conversation, I realized she really knows what she's doing. And I was really able to walk out of there feeling confident I'm with the right person. That's sounding so much better than, oh my God, she's so amazing. She's the best in the business. I wouldn't go to anyone else. I thoroughly recommend. That's not a testimonial. That's just someone gushing. And gushing sounds really, really fake. So if you can avoid the gushing, it'd be really, really good. If we look at reviews, very, very similar to a testimonial, but we call those the objective cousin of the testimonial. So this is where you're taking all the gushiness out, all the fancy words out, all those wonderful things that someone wants to say about you out, and we're replacing it just with a 1 to 5 or a 1 to a 10 or a percentage or a star review. And this is just saying basically that we want to review a specific thing. So if I get, for instance, Uber Eats, which I'm probably going to get tonight because I don't have time to cook because I'm turning around tonight and flying back out again tomorrow morning. So I want to get a few things done tonight. My review for Uber Eats will be very specific. It asks me if I want to review the delivery person and say, were they good? I can give them a tip as well if I really want to, so I can rate them out of 5. I can also rate the restaurant out of 5 to say whether they were good. And then it lets me get really specific. Was the food hot? Was the food delivered fast? Was the food delivered in such a way that it was not damaged? If the food looked good, is it well packaged? Is it sustainable packaging? All things that I can do a review on without actually then writing anything about it. I can choose to write things about it if I like, but the whole point of this is to get hard, objective data, not opinions, data that says this was a 1 star or was a 3 star, or was it a 5 or a 4 or a 2, whichever stars it was. It's really easy to measure. So that, for instance, that restaurant can know that this week we had 13 2-star reviews, 57 3-star reviews, 22 4-star reviews, and about 4 5-star reviews. And they can go, look, we're kind of missing on this. We're getting a big clump in the middle. What are we doing wrong to not be able to attract those really good 5-star reviews? They're really good for comparisons, though, because if you look at different restaurants and something like the Uber Eats app or DoorDash or any of those restaurant apps, or even if you were to look at like the star reviews on things like Google, that gives you a really good comparison shop around maybe 2, 3, 4, 10 different businesses that do what you do, and you see how they all sit, where their reviews are. But of course, reviews, just like testimonials, are only as good as the amount of them they are. You're much more likely to trust someone with 2,000 3-star reviews than 1 5-star review, because it tells you that that person, even though they've got 2,000 3-star reviews as average, they've served 2,000 people. This person over here may have only served 1 person. In fact, they probably didn't. It was probably them themselves that did that review. And of course, reviews, without being prompted, we naturally tend towards giving bad reviews. We're just like, oh, skip through the good ones. Yeah, it was fine. The only place where that tends to be a bit different is things like Uber. or Ola or Didi or Shiba or whatever your choice of ride share app is. And of course, the order dinner online apps like the Uber Eats and Menulog and Deliveroo and DoorDash and all those kind of companies, that they tend to encourage you to do the reviews simply because they make it so easy. You just go, boom, they do it. It prompts you. It even comes up as a notification. Review how that went. You go, actually, yeah, it was really yummy. Do it now. And they tend to do it right at that point of delivery when you're there, opening up the pizza box or opening up the packaging to get to that food. And you get that first big smell of that food and the heat of it. And it's a good experience. So you immediately go, oh, yeah, I'll review that. The food's obviously hot. That's awesome. 5 stars. So it's not necessarily going to be something which is going to give you a lot of data. It's going to give you just basically the data that tells you whether you're doing well or whether you're not doing well. So that's another form of social proof, I guess, because it allows you to compare with other people. So when you look from your end, you can see how you're going against your competition, but it also helps for a customer to be able to see how other people had that experience. If too many people have got 1 and 2 star reviews, chances are there might be problems if they go with this particular business. So, which of course raises the question, if you're full of bad reviews, what do you do? Quite often, I just turn off the reviews in things like in Facebook. In fact, I don't even want reviews because I don't want that to be the social proof that people use. I want, and not that anyone does, I barely get any reviews for anything that I do, apart from feedback surveys to do with things like this webinar, for instance, if people hated it, loved it, or got some value out of it, or didn't get value out of it. Still remember one I got about 3 months ago when someone said I was really unprofessional because somebody knocked at my door and had to drop off some food that came an hour early. And that sort of made me think, you know what? That's a really good piece of feedback, because even though I didn't want my food sitting out there for an hour getting stolen, it's probably a good idea for me to actually make sure I just, when I order my dinner on these later webinars, to do that a bit more efficiently and do that at a better time. Good feedback for me, even though it was it sounded pretty nasty and petty at the time. Apart from reviews, then, you can look at things like social media. Now, this is an easy one. Social proof comes in the form of shares, likes, and comments. You can look at the following that people have. Even though Instagram is taking that away and Facebook is phasing it out, you can still get an idea of whether people have a lot of reactions going on, people having conversations with them. I've got a lot more social proof, for instance, in my social media through LinkedIn than I have through Facebook, for instance, because I sell to businesses. I don't sell to individual consumers. So Facebook is not really a great source of that kind of feedback or following at all. But then I get onto Twitter and I get onto LinkedIn. They're really, really important to me. I even get more feedback on YouTube than what I get on Facebook. But then I'm not really looking for it. It's a place where you can then take good feedback, like your testimonials, and post them as posts in your social media feed. That's a really obvious one. You can follow conversations, have conversations with customers and clients. If someone's saying, oh, this is a really good piece of advice, thank you so much for giving it to me, start a conversation. Don't just like them. Say, I'm really glad it happened. Was there anything else you wanted to learn this week? And I might be able to put together another one. And then you start to build these conversational threads that are happening on the posts. When someone comes into your page or into your content and they see this stuff, then what happens is they start to notice this stuff and it becomes social proof for them. It becomes the kind of thing that they're able to see. I just lost where that Q&A is, sorry. So I'm just going to quickly try and see if I can. I think it's actually in behind my presentation. I can see the chat window nice and clear though. So if you can maybe just repeat that Q&A question into the chat window, I'll much more easily be able to get to it, because I think it's actually hiding in behind my my window here. Yeah, it is. It's of all the places for that to go, it's hiding in behind here, but I'd love to be able to answer that question for you. Things like current posts is also very valuable social proof. If I'm researching a business that I want to deal with, some software I want to deal with, I don't just go with what they're saying in their ads. I don't just go with what their website is saying. I don't just go with what testimonials are saying. I want to go and see their social media, see if they're still actually alive. If they're doing nothing on their social media and haven't done anything since 2014, that's a sign of a dead business. That's probably a business that doesn't really do much. If they can't be bothered dealing with their social media, chances are when I go looking for them for some customer support through their social channels, they're not monitoring it because they don't respect that channel. So social proof sometimes is just going and looking to see if you're still active on your social media properties. It doesn't mean you have to produce like the most amazing content known to mankind and producing cinematic quality videos on your social media. It just means being present, letting them know that that's still there. You know, highlighting products, highlighting questions, providing some education or a little bit of engagement for people. Even if they're not responding to you, it's important that you do participate, particularly on the big ones, your Facebooks, Google My Business if you can, and in things like Instagram. And in an increasing way, I'd probably say it's kind of important if you've got something on LinkedIn, make sure you're at least a little bit active in there, especially in your company page. It'd be pretty important to have that up to date and things going in there. Question from Christy is, where do you think the best place is for reviews? I would say Google, because that's the first place where we go to do any research. So it's the first place that Google looks itself when it wants to do some ranking based upon your social proof. So definitely Google, because it's the place where it takes a bit more effort to put that in. So people who put those reviews back in have actually gone to some specific effort to tell that. Facebook recommendations can be okay, but because recommendations on Facebook are so easy, they tend to attract really, really like a lot of negative stuff as well. And there are so many retailers who I've worked with, and so many tourism operators I've worked with who just have turned off their recommendations in Facebook because people are nasty. Like, excuse me, even with their real name going up there, they are just nasty, and there's competitors who'll go in there and they know that once you give a bad review, it can't be taken back. Same with Google though. Like if someone really wants to get bad to you, they can do that through Google too. And it's going to show up as a fake account. It takes, you know, something like 45 seconds to set up a new Gmail account with which you can use to go and review people. So you can do all sorts of fake reviews on there, or rubbish all your friends, rubbish all your competitors, and that's stuff you can do. But the problem is, if you start that kind of war, that social proof war, where you're going to start putting down your competitors, they'll come back and do it to you. No one wins that kind of thing. What I'm going to do is quickly just reduce my screen a bit so I can get to that Q&A window that's hiding behind this screen. We'll find it. Let's find it. Where is it hiding? Where are you, buddy? Here you are. Drag it over my other screen so I actually read what's in there. Thank you for indulging me in that. There we go. So Snetsana is afraid of slander on Facebook. Is Instagram better in that sense? Look, I think Instagram, because there's no way of actually providing a review on Instagram as such as there is on Facebook, can be a great place with which to do that. And you can control a lot more about what's going on Instagram. So for instance, you have no control over what someone says about you as a review, as a recommendation or a do not recommendation on Facebook, but you can control what is shown on your profile and in your comments on Instagram. So you can actually go forward and remove comments that people are slandering you about on Instagram, but you will have to be all over it all the time in order to do that. So, you know, like I said, I don't run recommendations and reviews on my Facebook account because on my Facebook businesses, because quite honestly, I haven't got the kind of businesses or products that people generally review anyway. They they don't always want to be people to know that they actually used me to do that thing. Is like when you're working in the online sector and you're doing people's social media for them, or you're doing their strategic stuff, and you know a lot about the insides of their business, they don't necessarily want the world knowing that you are the person who's doing that for them. So things like recommendations, I steer clear of them on Facebook. I can't steer clear of them on Google because, you know, once you've opened up a Google My Business account, you get reviewed and you get, you know, either panned or you get praised. You don't have any control over that. I would say though, probably don't be as reliant upon recommendations and reviews as you are on controlling the things you can control, which is posting the rest of recommendations and testimonials through your Facebook business page and posting them as, you know, as posts. So if you get some really good feedback from someone called Jenny, actually call Jenny out in a post and say, hey, Jenny said some really great things about us this week about this, and this. Thanks, Jenny. And we always like getting some feedback. I go a little bit further, and I quite often tell my story about the things I've failed at. For instance, I lost a client last week. I was being really, really self-congratulatory about something where I filled out my calendar for the next month and didn't have any more capacity. And on that same day, then a client dropped out because they felt like I'd underserviced them. So that was a bit of a blow. So I got ahead of that by being honest about it in social media and posting a story about, I let someone down and it felt terrible. So I made sure that on the exit of that, I didn't react to it and say, oh, you're bad, you're bad, you're bad. I just said, you know what, I did stuff up in that case. So I owned it and I owned up to it, and it made the whole thing go so much better, so that those people aren't going to go and write a bad review about me now on any platform, because I didn't smooth it over and fix it. They're certainly still not my client, but I was able to at least own up to that problem and have them feeling like they walked away not feeling like they weren't listened to. And quite often that's what a lot of bad reviews happen. There's just something which happens when someone doesn't feel like they're being heard, they haven't been taken seriously, they haven't been listened to in some sort of way. Questions, guys. Thank you so much for them so far. They're really good. So if we look at then another one here, Snitsana is revamping your web page and advise to insert the video. Is that a must nowadays? Look, it's not necessarily. It just depends on what you want to achieve. So if you want people to watch your video, and if your video gives a really good explanation of what it is you do, then that can be great. But from the social proof point of view, that's not really relevant to social proof. That's more about getting people familiar with who you are and very familiar with the kind of person you are and the kind of services that you offer. So instead of social proof, that can be a little bit what we call empathy. Whereas if someone sees your face on something, they feel a lot more drawn to you in an empathetic way. So they feel like they can, if they feel like that you're a human, they're a human, and you're a woman and they're a woman, there's a much more of a nice angle towards each other. You feel safer dealing with someone who introduces themselves as a real person. That might be good. I would say give it a test. If it doesn't work, rip it out, because when you put videos on websites, even when they're hosted with YouTube or something like that, it slows down the loading and it can really affect your position on Google. Though if you're in a city like Perth, and you are in this case, then you're up against a lot of competition. So the chances are that you're not going to really get a high position on Google when you're just starting out a business and you're trying to get a good position in Google. That's going to take a long time to get that position on Google, because the number one metric that Google looks at is what they call trust factor. And that's to do with the amount of times you've answered the questions that people are looking for over and over and over and over again. If you already have a good position on Google, which it looks like you're saying you have, well, then in that case, then the video might be great. You might be able to work with the video and have that in there. That won't work as social proof, though. Social proof is other people talking about you, not you talking about yourself. That's more about getting people used to who you are and building some empathy around them, feeling like they can relate to you. Good questions. Thank you very much. Appreciate those ones. The next ones we'll look at are what we call trust icons. This is where you've got your memberships. This is your authority. That was the idea that you can be trusted because. So in like Snitsana's case, it may have been that someone would feel like they are connected to you in some way. They feel like, oh, that person understands what I'm going through by watching a video. But the next step is then to back that up with trust. Why would someone trust you to spend their $3,000 with, or their $100 in that course with? And that's through showing people that you can be trusted. Now, that's not necessarily from feedback or testimonials. That could be just from, oh, they're a member of X. Oh, they've got a good review on TripAdvisor. Oh, they've been featured on the Today Show, or they've been on on the Sydney Morning Herald, or they've appeared in the Courier Mail, or in the West Australian, or it's been seen on Channel 10, or they've got a certification in this and that. I use my trust icons quite liberally all over the place. I do a lot of video work, but I also like to display my qualifications and my certifications and the big clients that I work with, because it lets people know that, oh, if he's trusted enough to work with Facebook and actually deliver their courses for them, then he must know enough about Facebook for me to work with. So I use trust icons in that way. That is social proof as well, because what it shows is, oh, if that client it was okay to use them, then sure, they'll work with me too. Or if that organization lets them become a member, oh, they must be pretty good at what they're doing, then otherwise they wouldn't be a member of that. So that sort of social proof definitely makes people feel a little bit safer when it comes to dealing with you. Numbers are also great. You can use numbers. You can talk about, oh, I've been in business for, I think Snitsana was saying 13 years there. So that whole thing, been doing this for 13 years is a great piece of social proof. It helps people feel safe. How many clients you've dealt with? I've worked with, like, I often throw out one of those things. I've got over 500 WordPress websites currently under my business's management on web servers that we have on SiteGround and on Venture IP, the two companies we use to host it. And we manage those and keep them up to date and safe with over 500 different websites, which means we've built over 500 websites in the last 5 years. That's great. That's numbers. Numbers are things that people feel comfortable with. They go, you got 500 websites, you must be pretty bloody good. Yeah, in some cases we are pretty bloody good. Sometimes that just means we're too busy. So just be careful with your numbers. You're not being unrealistic, saying that we've helped thousands of small businesses to do this or hundreds of clients to do that, when clearly you are in too small a town to have done any of that kind of thing. Then that's when it gets a little bit silly. And how many visitors can be a decent one when you're going, oh, we have over 30,000 visitors a year to our news website. That can be a good piece of social proof that helps someone to feel a little bit better about going to that website and trusting what's on it. And then, of course, there's your follower numbers. So if people know, they can see a lot of following going on, a lot of commenting, a lot of interaction going on your social media. That helps people feel a lot safer about that stuff as well. So a few examples you might see of social proof in action can be, for example, this one is an example of storytelling social proof. So what it is that reviews that are being given are telling stories. And those stories are, it's sent to my best friend, note inside was a nice touch. That's telling the story. I sent it to my best friend. I bought this for my husband. He opened the mail before it got everywhere. Had to change, late to work and must be getting fired, LOL. So these are one of these things where it's like they're letters that get sent to people which explode with confetti everywhere. I'd never get tired of seeing my co-workers rage when opening their glittery envelopes. So it's one of those things. And then for my 1 year anniversary, I didn't know what to get my wife. So I bought this thinking it would be funny. It wasn't. I'm now divorced, broken, living with my best friend. These kind of things, to get, they tell a story. And these stories are very tongue-in-cheek and probably not very real. But they can be really good for getting, I guess, an idea across of how someone might use a product or how someone has used that product in the past. Implied social proof is where we're saying, for instance, the number one top trader out of 660,000 Covesta traders is implying by saying I turned $12,415 into $4.3 million trading penny stocks. That's his way of saying, well, it's implied that I'm good at what I do because look at what I did. I did this and I've got all the stuff. You want to work with me because it's implied that you'd want to work with me because look at what I've done. I'm able to do all these things. I've even got this great headshot where I'm looking real serious. So that implied social proof is going, would you trust a guy who is able to do this kind of stuff? Yeah, probably would. And he's been variously seen on these different networks and on these different news networks. And he's a Wall Street warrior as well. He's all these things that he does. He must be pretty good at what he does. And then finally, it's what we call activity proof. So over on the top right-hand corner, you see BBT, online, population, all that sort of thing. So it's saying there's 52 people online. The time is currently 1:59 p.m. and the population of this particular Biddy Bay game is 97,986. So there's using those numbers again, but in a way that's saying there's currently 52 people online. So if you log in now, there's 52 other people who you can interact with and have a great time with. So that's that activity proof, which I guess works on that whole method of working with numbers. Question F and Sensana is saying, I need a good WordPress specialist. My web page is optimized and SEO is super dated. What do you suggest? I reckon start looking for people in your local area who specifically look at working through the process of changing the website without damaging its SEO. It's a very, very specific skill. A lot of people just want to rebuild a website in their own image and build something which looks really pretty, but they don't necessarily want to be able to save what you've already done. I've changed my WordPress website probably about 5 times now, and I haven't lost any of my position on Google for it, basically because I guess in my case, it's because I keep the same content. The content doesn't change. All I do is change the look and the feel to make it look a bit more modern. And anything that does move and change its particular URL, its address, gets referenced as a redirect, so that then goes to the new location where it is. So yeah, if there's I'll have to have a think about that. Someone in Perth who can do that, because there's I do know a few people in Perth, but not specifically SEO people. I do know someone in Brisbane who's excellent with SEO, but I'll have a look through our advisor list. I might have to get back to you on that, Cesana. So if you can maybe give me an email of where you are at. My email is, I'm just going to put it on the chat window, so it'll flash up in a sec. You can send me an email just to let me know what your email address is, and I'll have a look for someone as well, because you really need someone who I guess is who is aware of SEO, but really knows how to maintain all that sort of stuff when it comes to their redesigning your website. For everyone else though, what's next? Well, I guess this is where you can actually participate in talking to somebody who can help you out with whatever your problems are in the digital world with your business, is by going into, whoops, where did I go? Just lost my screen there, to help you out with things like, what Snetsana's asking about, or it could be a problem with social media, or it could be anything really that you're getting a bit of a struggle with. So your first consultation, if you've never done a one-to-one before, is free. Second consult, $44. Third, and any after that at $66. So it's heavily subsidized what our regular one-to-one time would normally be. The way to find it is to go through to asbas.com.au. If you want to know more about me or read more about my stuff, please drop into my website. That's my full name, dantestjames.com. And you can also email me or stalk me on social media. I've got plenty of all that sort of stuff. And I do enjoy talking to new businesses, where I work with so many of you. So thank you so much for joining me this afternoon / this evening. It's time for me to get some Uber Eats and start rating some of that service, hey? Thank you, and have a great night.